Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here with the Spartan Rocketry Club, continuing my build here of the Estes Sasha model rocket. So the first stage, the booster stage, is done. Fillets are on it. Everything's looking pretty nice. There was a fairly large gap at the back of this fin that I ended up filling with glue. Yeah, I mean, this one didn't sit down quite as far as it's supposed to, but overall, looks pretty good. So this is ready to go. This can go elsewhere for a while, actually. Now it's time to make some progress with the second stage. That would be the main part of the rocket. So we do need to do a few things before we start gluing things together. One is I need to fish out this dowel here. So the dowel is going to be, well, break out the box art here. It's for these little decorative red things that stick out. So I'm not going to glue them in until the rocket is basically assembled. It's going to be the last thing I'm going to do. But I am going to cut them out now, because why not? They each need to be 1 inch long. So I've got 9 inches of dowel. I need 8 of them. So I'm just going to mark off 1 inch bits right along this. That'll give me 1 extra should things go awry. Alright, I'll need the ruler again shortly here, but not at the moment. So you can, if you really want to, you can use the hobby knife to cut through this. This is actually, I don't know what kind of wood this is, but it's harder wood than balsa, so it doesn't go particularly well. You kind of just have to like notch at it and hack. So instead, I found that scissors work just as well. They do kind of deform the wood, but you're going to deform the wood chopping through it with a hobby knife anyway. So I'm going to carefully, there we go, chop like so. The downside to using scissors is, I mean, I find it particularly accurate, but the downside is the little piece that you've cut, it has a penchant to go flying. So do be aware of that. Sometimes it's nice to cut from multiple directions, so start in on it and then rotate it 90 degrees or so. You might get a better cut that way. Regardless of how you cut this, you are going to need to sand these up. Whee! That was fun when you're done. Because even doing this with a hobby knife, I found that the cuts are never particularly clean and they look kind of ratty. That's what sandpaper's for. Well, I don't know where that one ended up. Maybe that'll be number 9. That definitely went flying off to my left somewhere. I will find that at some point, but yikes. Yeah. Last one. Last cut, anyway. You can also, like, you could start it and then just kind of pry them apart like that. It tends to make a less clean cut than it would otherwise, but it's always an option. Anyway, I'm not going to do all of these, but grab a piece of sandpaper and just a little bit of that, and it smooths it up nicely. It goes quite quickly. But I would do these individually. If you want to, you could round them, which is not fun. I don't think I would bother with that unless you really, really want to. And they do need to be sanded though, because they look like they're not great at the moment. All right, next thing. It is worth mentioning that I did put a fillet. I don't know if you can. Oh, well, that's way too close to the camera. That's all right. I did put a fillet in here. It actually went pretty well. I just had the tube offset slightly like this, probably steeper, and dribbled glue down in it. Now the glue coheres, right? It sticks to itself, so you can use it to kind of make a stream and then guide the stream. It's kind of like taking a piece of yarn or fabric, or string or something, and kind of dangling it. So it worked pretty well. I did end up using the dowel to pat it in there, but overall pretty good. All right, now I'm going to take 2 stages to do this. I don't want to put all the fins on at once. I'm going to start with the smaller ones because they go at the bottom. But before I do that, I am going to take a moment and I'm going to mark off where the upper fins, the larger fins, are going to go. Now they go 3 inches from the base of the rocket. So, and I have 8 lines here, remember, for doing this earlier. So on every other one, I'm going to make a mark at 3 inches. And I'm just going to do this beforehand so I don't have to try to stick my ruler in between fins that are already attached. Alright, so that's great. There is one other measurement that needs to be made at some point, and that's where the launch lug is going to go. The launch lug needs to be, it needs to be 6 inches up the tube, but it's going to be next to the fin. So that's going to be hard to do. I'm not going to bother trying to measure that right now. It's just not going to work very well, because chances are I'd put the mark on and I'd end up, gluing a fin over top of it. Plus I have to remember which fin I actually want to do. So I'm not going to measure that until I actually, assemble this. So anyway, I'm going to put the small fins on now because they go all the way back. They do go flush with the end, which is nice, so I don't have to worry about measuring anything there. And this is pretty much all I'm going to accomplish in the remainder of this video. So this is, unlike our through-the-wall construction, we're going to be gluing it directly to the tube, for better or for worse. We won't have to worry about test fitting these things or the fin getting a bit stuck on the way, but we are going to have to worry about it sticking and not flopping over. Also, I need to make sure that I don't glue these to the lines on which I just marked off 3 inches. So not this line, but this line at the base. Typical construction method, I'm going to let the glue tack up a little bit. I'm going to actually move these out of the way. And then I'm going to put the second layer of glue on after about 30 seconds. That first layer of glue was pretty thin, so probably wouldn't hurt here to have a slightly thicker layer of glue this time. Okay, and then again, this is going right at the end, so that's good, and not on ones that I marked. I'll line it up carefully at the back, and then I want to kind of roll it forward, making sure that it is nice and centered on that line I drew. I'll hold it here for a good 30 seconds or so until everything has set up nicely. Again, the instructions do say that I should have the inch-long dowels that I cut in the fin before I start attaching them. I really don't see a good reason to do that. I think they're going to be just fine attached after. And I should be able to have this whole thing set up vertically, right? I should be able to have the rocket sitting on its end when I put them in, and that hopefully will make it a little bit easier. Alright, that seems reasonably good. I'm going to smooth out the little bit of extraneous glue there, and we will worry about alignment in a little bit. I'm going to stand this up in the meantime while I prepare the next fin. Standing it up vertically means that gravity is pulling, against the long seam that I attached, right? So it's less likely, it's not going to fall down completely. Plus that's not quite lying on the ground or on the mat, but it's pretty close. So that should be good. I probably should have checked alignment before I did anything. It's not aligned, it's not straight, so I'm going to try to adjust it a little bit. Again, I'm not going to worry about that too much until after I get all 4 of these on, because then I can really see how aligned it is or isn't, as the case may be. Alright, there's my second bit of glue. Spread things out. It's probably a bit more than I needed. That's fine. It'll come out when I attach things. Alright. This one, hopefully the glue is tacked enough here so this isn't going to flop over. But same deal. Starting at the back, and then rolling it up, and then I'm going to hold it for a good 30 seconds. I'm going to check alignment actually on both of them as soon as this is tacked up enough. I probably should have checked to see whether the first fin was in line with the line that I drew. It's not very big, so I could see it reasonably well. So I didn't bother to check. I probably should have. So I'll check them both. It feels pretty good. Carefully smooth out this glue seam. And then let's check, just looking down. Okay, the alignment on the line, as it were, looks pretty good. This probably needs to be adjusted a little bit that way. Again, it's hard to tell if these are all at 90-degree angles until you have them all on. It's probably not really worth doing anything about it anyway, since you'll have to adjust them all a little bit later anyway, or probably will anyway. So we'll worry about final alignment once all the fins are on. Continuing the process here. And this is one of the few things in building a rocket that you can do with just wood glue that is kind of time sensitive. If you're working with any more sophisticated glues like CA or epoxy, then you definitely have a time limit on pretty much everything you do that involves the glue. CA glue sets up really fast, seconds. Epoxy, well, it depends on what kind of epoxy you have. The stuff I use is 5 minutes, so you got 5 minutes to work, and then you've got an impenetrable brick of plasticky goo after that. So the wood glue, on the other hand, is, I actually buy this stuff because it has a fast set time. This particular brand comes in a variety of different formulations. This one is supposed to be the one that tacks the quickest. So that's why I buy it, for this purpose. If you were looking for, this makes good enough fillets, but if you really wanted great fillets, they sell another brand that you might consider, or another formulation that you might consider. But anyway, I like this stuff. It works perfectly well. It is worth noting too that the nozzle that I have on this is quite old, and it came from not this bottle. I've recycled it repeatedly at this point. The nozzle that comes on these bottles is really wide and not for delicate work. This came from an old white school glue bottle, which I happen to like, so I've been reusing it ever since. Alright, I need to hold this up in the air now since there's a fin on the bottom that would interfere, so this is going to be slightly harder to line up, but I think I can manage. Again, rolling it forward, and then I'm going to hold it for a good 30 seconds again, and then check alignment. I don't feel as confident about the alignment on this being on the line, so we'll definitely have to check that. I did adjust it as I rolled it forward. I can feel that, so we'll have to see how this looks after the 30 seconds of tack time has passed. Check my alignment, my line, and it's a little, oops, that was way too much. Alright, that looks better. Alright, and I feel pretty confident about that being at close to a right angle, so I'll let that sit. When I did adjust it, I did disrupt that tack, so that one's not going to be as robust as the other ones, unfortunately. So hopefully that one will not flop off when I attach this one. Alright, so a little more work here, and then I'm gonna let all of this just completely dry. I'm not even going to bother putting a fillet on it yet. I will put fillets on all the fins when all 8 of them are attached, so there's no real reason to worry about that now. Plus, I don't want to put a fillet on before I put the launch lug on, because the launch lug kind of goes as a fillet, at least to some degree. So I don't want to jump the gun on that. So we'll just patiently wait until all the fins are on, and the launch lugs, and pretty much everything else before we put fillets on. That can be pretty much a last step here. Plus, there are a couple other little doodads that are going to get added, little strakes and things. Alright, I let that sit longer than I typically would, which is not a problem, again, because I wanted that third fin to tack up a little bit more. Plus, it really does not hurt to let this glue set for more than 30 seconds. I mean, like 10 minutes? Yeah, that'd be a problem. A minute? Probably better, actually. Alright. Last one. Same deal. Line it up, roll it forward, and hold it till the glue is set. Well, tacked anyway. Set is not for a while. So I'm going to check alignment on this. I'm going to check alignment, I think, using the grid on my cutting mat here. We'll see how effective that is. These are pretty small fins, so they're probably not going to be wildly out of alignment. Knock on wood. We'll see. But even if they are, I don't think this is really going to require that the shaded, like, shadow diagram that I used to check the alignment for the first stage. Now I am eventually going to use that to check the complete alignment of the entire rocket, because it has all 8 fins drawn on it. But for now, since I'm going to have this right on the mat, and I'm only looking for 4 fins at 90-degree angles, this should be more than enough. Alright, that seems lined up pretty well. Let's check alignment with the grid. Move it down here a little bit. You can see some of it. Alright, I'm going to try to center things up. The left and right fins, at least from this vantage point, look pretty good. The top and bottom fins need to be adjusted a little bit. Just a lot of kind of fine tuning here. Alright, that looks pretty good. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees to just check it again. Because, sometimes you get a kind of a false indication, of how things are just based on one position. Looks like it's a little bit off. Alright, I'm satisfied with this. So this is where this video is going to end, I suppose. I'm going to let it dry for a couple hours, and then it'll be ready to put the other fins on. Thanks for watching, and close my bottle, and I will see you in the next video.